rephrase this. Seems like every year the codes get more and more strict. There's no regard for the cost upon the homeowners or the businesses when you talk about codes. Take, for instance, your energy code.
Right.
Your energy code says that if you want to replace a window or a door or fix a piece of siding, you have to have a certain R rating. Well, in order to do that, you need to get a permit. If you tell the average citizen that elects all the people on this board that they have to get a permit to fix their door, to replace a window, to fix some siding, they get pretty darn mad. And you know what? I got a real bone to pick with the way the codes are written and enforced because of that. And I'm working with state legislators right now to try and change some of this stuff legislatively in the state. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but on this board, I'm going to work my darndest to not allow the codes to be over-restrictive.
Well, that's why I said when the codes are finished, local government, state government, and actually the federal government, for instance, all of the buildings that house our military people are built on the codes that people like Ray produce. The State Department uses it to build embassies all over the world. But, so from federal, state to local, like I said, the local government, the enforcing government, or we call it authority having jurisdiction, has the ability to take that model code and say, in your jurisdiction, or, what town are you from?
I'm from Homer Glen.
Okay, so you're from Homer Glen. So you can, you might want to talk to Joe Baber and say, Joe, when we adopt the code in Homer Glen, let's take that out about the permit. Let's just let a guy put a window in.
I was told that we on our committee here, I was told that if we don't enforce that with a permit.
Now, and the state energy code, that might be a slippery slope because it's a state energy code.
Well, the state energy code is probably the most restrictive to people.
Right.
Where people get the maddest about. But, there's other stuff too.
But see, now the state energy code, I was just at a meeting with the state energy code advisory council about 6 weeks ago. And there's 2 home builders on that council. There's 2 building officials. There's architects, engineers, and there's state staff. Those people can be talked to. I mean, you might want to contact your local, Will Grundy home builders and say, hey, when that guy's down in Springfield deliberating on the state energy code, here's some input for you.
See, the energy code to me should be voluntary. If you want to make your house so it's super insulated, God bless you. And if you don't, you're going to have to pay for it by higher energy costs. But, what we're doing is forcing our people to get permits for everything. And in reality, they're not doing it anyway. Well, and then they're getting caught and getting fines, and then they're calling me up or other people complaining. And it all goes back to well, I didn't realize what you said there, so I'll have to bring that up with Ray at a different time.
He can probably be a little more specific on that. I'm more of a government person than a code person, but if you renovate...
Let's bring Bob into this sort of this thing. As I said before, the Energy Code, the 2012 International Energy Conservation Code, is a state law.
And that's why I contacted
and
the
that's
state
why
reps.
we are not able to interpret anything. We are not able to change anything. It's a law. If you want to put a window in your house and it doesn't meet the state energy code, you sell your house and that new person finds out, they can sue you. You've broken the law. And this is what we've put out there. Unfortunately, that's it. The IAC is the ADA, only Illinois style, and it's a law.
We just made a law.
Radon, which is an appendix, is now a law. It's no longer anything that we can call a county code. It's a law.
I just had a call from a state rep who said they changed the law for mechanical septic tanks aren't allowed. So she's going to have to cut down over 100 oak trees because putting a new septic field in order to sell the property, which means she probably won't. And that's a state rep. So
Well, that would be the Illinois plumbing code, right?
Yeah, so it's all these codes, I think what it really needs to have happen is that every 2 years, 5 years, whatever, all the codes are completely abolished, and you start all over again and rewrite them so that they make sense, because, we can't keep getting stricter and stricter. Pretty soon, someone's gonna say that your car isn't gonna have a code. That you're gonna have, like, we can't have a car that has a window that isn't the right R ratings, because it might be, that's where we're headed, and we have to stop that direction.
What we have to do is, and it can be mitigated, and sometimes the codes are relaxed in some areas. They don't always get stricter. The problem that we have is, and once again, why do we have codes in Will County? Well, one of the things, our unincorporated Will County has a certificated staff. Each one of my inspectors holds certificates. They've all been tested, my plans reviewers and myself, in various areas, and we're all combination inspectors, so that we understand these minimum requirements, which are the codes. The people that look at that is called the Insurance Service Organization. And we have a rating from 1 to 10, the lower rating being the better you can get. And with ISO, what that does is when they put it out there, when they're saying, your minimum levels are pretty good, and the way you inspect those with the staff that you have, because they are trained, they are tested, they're proven, we know that this is a better product. So you know what we're going to do, unincorporated Will County? We're going to give it a lesser rate for your homeowner's insurance, because on an average, you're getting a better quality product. It doesn't have to be more expensive, it just has to be more meticulously built. It doesn't have to be over-inspected, it just has to meet the minimums. But the inspectors better know what they're looking for, and they better know what's embodied in each one of these code books, because that's what we're tested on. That's what we have to qualify, and that's where our continued education goes each and every year. Because if you don't have that, you lose your certification. So that's why we have codes. It actually benefits all of Will County, not just those building, but everybody if they're built to those standards. I do have copies of this, so you can take one home if you wish. They're on this table. And I know it's tough sometimes to say, I got to get a permit. Jeez. I want to blow $100 here. And for what? They're just going to raise my taxes. Well, not really. Because with that permit, I've been able to go after a roofer who didn't do his job and take his $10,000 bond and make sure it got done. And when it did get done, it was done correctly. That put that person in a better home and a higher quality product for no other reason other than mechanics and good practice. And we've done that not once, twice, but I've done that a number of times. Because I've yet to have anybody come to my building counter and say, I'm going to do a terrible job on this house. I'm not going to build this with it, and you're going to have to put up with it. Everybody that comes in says, you know how I built? I built to the nth degree. I build it better than anybody else. I can do this. So
I'm referring to maintenance and repair items that the homeowner can do themselves.
And the homeowner's allowed by our contractor ordinance to do that themselves, but they do have to meet the law.
Well, that's my argument. The code is too strict, and it
And
shouldn't be there.
if you want to change the law, as you said, your legislators are the conduit. Those are the guys you've got to talk with. And that's what we're hoping to do. I know that we've had this conversation before, but anybody who wishes to change the law, the only way to do it is to actually go downstate. Get your lobbyists going, because that's the only way it's going to work. I would very much love to look at that energy code and make it fit Will County. But unfortunately, we're given that law, and like anybody else, we have to enforce it.
Ray, what is this that you
have the builder, developer, we do strictly commercial and industrial. We don't do residential unless it's a residential fire sprinkler system. They submit their plans, we do a review, we send our review to the builder or the contractor and also to the county building department. When the building is in a spot where it needs to be inspected, we go out and inspect the fire codes, our review, make sure all our comments were met. And when it comes to the occupancy, we'll send a letter to the county. They've met all requirements, then we sign off on it. And we work with them. If they miss something, if it's life safety, we don't let it open. We'll ask the county to withhold the permit. But if it's something, an exit light needs to be fixed, we'll work with the occupant.
Essentially, you
Enforcement
inspect, the enforcement is left on us, on the county, correct?
That's probably a gray area.
Who's the enforcement agent?
For the fire code, fire district.
And then what do you, if someone is outside code, not meeting code, what action can you take against that business or?
Well, as Larry stated, the code process, how they deliver their plans to the various departments, they're already telling us that they're going to build their building a certain way. And then when we go out on our tests and inspections, we're just confirming that it is built to the way they said they build it. So if they're not building it in that manner, then we point that out to them, what deficiencies, and they have to correct it before they get approval.
Just as a hypothetical, we have a building owner business that's out there, Mr. Ballanch's business, and he didn't get a permit, okay? And we come upon it and he's in violation of fire code, who enforces that?
Both agencies.
Well, the
What mechanism?
county building department, they will.
Yeah, but what if he doesn't have a permit?
They will put a stop work order out because he didn't submit plans to the county.
The enforcement still comes back to the county, correct?
We both cooperate on the enforcement.
Chief, I have a-
What's the mechanism you enforce other than stopping the
Us.
permit?
We'll
Once,
stop the job.
say this job happened,
Okay.
and then they're in violation. Land use can go out and cite them for a code violation. What can you do?
Same thing.
You can cite.
We're our fire
them.
district attorney.
So where I have a question is if we have the fire districts go out and enforce the fire code with Will County, who's ultimately responsible, and all the other codes are being enforced by our county inspectors, do we start saying, all right, we want the energy code agency to come out with and inspect for the energy code, and with our, make a deal, and the plumbing code, and each of these different codes that we have, do we have the specialists from each of those codes come out and enforce their rules the way they see it in behalf of Will County, who's responsible in the end? And that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm saying, I don't mind if the fire districts all come out and help our guys, but our guys are responsible unless we're going to bring in all these other agencies, which would be ridiculous. Our guys are qualified to do it all.
Let me just ask you, what you're saying is that the 39 fire protection districts that represent within Will County, you write 39 separate fire codes for the county.
I've got to, if I might.
Because I think the enforcement agency is the county. It's the county.
No.
All right, well, then why are we even doing it? Why do we even have a fire code in the county? If the fire protection districts are going to write their own codes, and you're going to enforce 39 separate different codes within Will County, then why don't you just do it? Why are we doing it?
Well, if I could.
I'm not being argumentative.
No, let me.
But you
if
can't
I
have,
could-
you're
If I
telling
could
me
put it this
that,
way, they're an extra, it's like when we,
right? Either
the-
we're the authority or we're not.
what I'm trying to do is, when we have something develop along the river,
I'm asking the question.
we also have to
Either
go
we
through.
we are either the enforcement authority or we're not.
We
Which
are
is,
the enforcement authority.
who's the enforcement authority?
We are.
Well, yes, and
Okay.
no, you sign off on the final permit, but if we went to court on a local ordinance, it'd be the fire district. That's correct. So like if right now, if you did something, I'm Todd.
So if you didn't like our code, you would just take your own separate,
That's how it is
take your
now.
own separate action.
That's how it is now.
For the unincorporated part,
For unincorporated area.
unincorporated.
Right, unincorporated.
They have the power to raise, to levy a fine of $750 per day, each day being a new violation.
Correct. Now, a lot
The
of
fire
it was,
district in and of itself. Now, the way that it's being done right now is the way that it's been explained, in that with cooperation from the county, until they get a sign off from the fire protection district doesn't grant the occupancy permit. And so that's the method that's being used right now. But if we refused or decided that we wanted to grant that occupancy permit, let's say that we don't agree with raising the standard or putting in a sprinkler system, and in fact, we gave them the permit, the occupancy permit anyhow, they would still be able to come in and enforce their ordinance against the homeowner by $750 fine per day. And so that's the ultimate control. They can't force us as the county at will to withhold our permit. They can't force us to enforce that. But if we fail to, they have the ability to be able to enforce it themselves.
So let me ask you this. When you have different codes within municipalities and unincorporated areas within the same fire protection district, which do you enforce?
It's my understanding that and I'm not very schooled in this, but I defer to somebody else, but it's my understanding there's a uniform basic, and then that there may be some tweaking of that for each fire.
What goes beyond that?
Fire.
Can I just,
And I'm really just trying to get some uniformity within the county.
I made some notes throughout the entire conversation tonight, and I'd like to go through those points. I think I'll answer a lot of these questions if you guys don't mind. Just a second ago, I'm a little bit out of order here, because Ray made a comment about how Will County had to change a couple things in 2012. You're talking about pulling sprinklers out?
Yes.
On the model code?
Yes.
Okay. What you just said was you did that because Will County's a little different, because of the rural areas, right? And we had some problems with water supply, stuff like that. Well, the fire districts and some of the other municipalities do the same thing. Sometimes when we have something special, unique in our town, we do it special, unique to make it unique, because we're not the same as, like, Illinois is not the same as California and New York. Northwest Homer is not the same as Frankfurt. So we might have different things. Some villages want different type of residential type areas, multifamily, non-multifamily, high-rise, non-high-rise. So we all have to make a little bit of code changes to meet our stuff. What we talked about earlier was in our letter was when Steve Whitefeld and Larry Newling were at the county, they came to the fire districts and wanted to provide a one-stop shop for businesses and stuff to make it easier. So they come into the county and say, hey, listen, I want to build a whatever. Immediately, we would meet with them on a pre-con meeting or something like this, say, okay, you're gonna have to do this, this, and this, you need to have these fees, you do stuff like this, here's a problem, blah, blah, here's your plans. We get the plans from the county, we review them, we give them back to the county, so it's easier for the commercial person. We do that in all of our villages. We do that in our villages, our townships, our cities, we all do this. This makes it easier for the resident, makes it easier for the builder, makes it easier for everybody. So it kind of makes it easier. So that was another one of my points. Back we were talking about, way back at the beginning, about permits and giving a incentive for permits. The idea what you hit on before about the permits is correct. The permits help offset the cost of what it takes to go out there, do the inspections, do the plan review, take the person out there. Impact fees are the same way. Impact fees are designed to take the tax deferred time. So like your taxes are always paid a year behind. So if I have a commercial building come in, they're getting services from that town a year kind of in advance. So that's what those impact fees are for. So if the permit fees are too high, you'd have to look at why are they so high? Are they actually taking that much services to do it? And then the people are, if they don't pay those fees, there shouldn't be a trade-off because you're still doing the work. So somebody else is absorbing that fee, so that's why they're there. When you talked earlier about crossing the street and the codes change, some of the things we did, I'll talk for Northwest Homer because that's where I'm from, years ago, and it's one of the things we did with the county with Steve Waterfeld and Larry Newling was Lamont, Northwest Homer, and Lockport got together and we had the same fire code. We did it simple. And we worked with the county on this too. So we did that. We talked about, and I'm going to take a quote out of here, there's really no reason to build anything beyond the minimum code. When have we told our children or our family or our wives or our husbands, hey, that's great, you did the least you could, you're good. You know, we've never done that. So sometimes you always want to do your best to make things better for your community. So doing the minimum, I always think is kind of, okay. We talked about technology gets better, codes get better. You want to keep your town visible and viable. You want to be, hey, we got a good town. You don't want a town, man, they got a lot of fires. They got crappy construction. Their houses are always on fire. They're always burning down. They look like crap. You know, residential codes, maintenance codes, all this stuff's out there to help keep your town fresh and viable. Hey, listen, we got a fresh town. Man, this town is new. You know, they don't have a lot of issues. Their buildings are strong. They're tall. They're big. They're beautiful. You know, many times, in our village, you always compare to other towns to the north. We could be like so-and-so. We don't want to be like so-and-so. Well, what do you want to be like? That's what you got to do. Some codes protect the people from themselves. When everybody gets that, don't quote me on them, use a name brand here, get the little orange Home Depot card in the mail, everybody's a contractor. So everybody thinks they can go out and do what they want. The problem is now if they do shoddy construction in your home, and you buy it, now you got shoddy construction, it's never inspected. But I agree with Steve, some permits are ridiculous, I do agree. Changing your hot water heater and stuff, but if a guy hooks his flue up wrong, he gets seal poisoning. Okay, then people could have a problem in their home. If you have water leaks, sometimes people make transitions between copper and plastic, it leaks, you get mold. Now you don't know, it's in the wall. Now the new person moves in, they get sick, they don't know, and why is it their fault? So that's something we got to think about too, and I can go on with those type of things. Building materials change over the years, so do building codes, like Ray was talking about. We're not having the same type of material, dimensional lumber, we're not having the glue lamp stuff, it's all changing, so codes have to evolve. We're not using wool and, dimensional lumber anymore. Codes are generally passed because bad things happen, and that's why we change codes, and that's why code progression changes, so we always got to keep changing our codes and look at them. And again, I just think that if we look at anything, we got to look at our partnership, how we work together. And the final last thought was, when we have an issue, we work with the county because it's just easier. If the county takes us off the signature process of the permit, that's okay. But then the problem's going to come apart is you go to do your business and you're going up under construction, all of a sudden we show up and say, what are you doing? And you're going to get your building built, or you're in process, or you already paid your architect to build it one way and you forgot something or missed something. Say sprinklers are required or not required. A lot of times the sprinklers are put in, there's a lot of good trade-offs in there. If you go ahead and build a building without sprinklers and then put sprinklers on top, you pay a lot more. If your architect incorporates the energy code, the accessibility code, you put all those together and marry them up, it's actually a better building and saves you some money. So a lot of times we come in together, we give them a good idea right up front, and it actually can save them money. And I know people are always worried about the big bad government coming. I mean, I don't like big bad government either, even though I'm part of it. But sometimes they're there to protect you. They really are. I mean, and I agree with Steve, there are some useless, silly things, I agree. But the partnership we have, I think, is too strong. There's 835 square miles in the county. I thought there was only 29 fire districts. I didn't think there was 39, but.
Greg's telling me 39. I'm just going to.
It's actually 38 fire protection.
Is it? All right, I thought it was 29, but okay.
It's 38.
But there are, just like there's, how many counties in the state of Illinois? There's 50 states in the union, so we all have different things. So you can always say, oh God, there's 50 states. We should have one code across 50 states. Oh my God, there's 100 counties in Illinois. We should have one thing. We can always do that. How many towns are there in Will County? We can always do that. So that's one thing about a government, how it's built and how it's tiered, is that we can go ahead and set our own rules and set our own laws that are for around here. And what we need. We might want something special. So that's all I got to say. I know it's long-winded, I'm sorry, but I just want you guys to understand that we do have the enforcement authority. It just works really well with the county because it's one-stop shop, it's unified, we're going together. A lot of times what happens when you go on inspection, you guys have been on inspections, and you guys can attest to this, that the business owner will play the inspectors against each other. Well, the county said I don't have to do that. And then we find out, oh yeah, no, that's not what we said. So we go in together, it works better. Saying that, well, fire district said I can get away with that. Never, like, fire district has no authority to say that. And they know we didn't say that. But the business owner will pit us against each other all the time. So we try to go in together, we inspect together, we permit together, and we close the building together. That's all I have to say.
I think if I could sum it, and Todd, you put it in.
Block walls 3 foot above the roof for every wall in the home, so that it's completely fire safety.
Well, see, we're going to.
I'm just asking the
We're being
question.
practical.
I mean,
Yeah,
well,
we're
some of these
practical.
fire, sprinkler systems could cost up to 10 grand. And to do a house, because when you go to sell the house, if it's not up to code, you're not going to be able to sell the house. So my question is, are we going to start doing it where we go to cinder block walls, no fires? Maybe we get volunteer fire departments then.
They do the annual inspections every year of the system.
Question.
I just want to point out a couple of basic facts about a residential sprinkler system, because when I hear a comment like that, I just want to make sure people understand what a residential fire sprinkler system is. I'm Peg Paul, and I'm the communications manager with the nonprofit Home Fire Sprinkler Coalition, a national organization. Most of my funding comes from FEMA Fire Act grants, and I happen to live in a sprinkler home in Frankfurt, so that's what brings me here tonight. An NFPA 13D system is specifically for 1- and 2-family homes. We're always fighting Hollywood when it comes to education, and I hope you know that each sprinkler is individually activated by heat. So the whole system never goes off. 90% of the time in a residential sprinkler, only one sprinkler, the sprinkler closest to that fire source, goes off. And so you don't need a major water source, because really a 13D system is designed for 2 sprinklers. So I'm a little concerned when I hear about rural systems, because when you're off of a municipal water supply, all you need is a 300-gallon tank, and that's enough water to supply 10 minutes to your sprinkler system so that everybody in the home can get out. And oftentimes, that's enough water to keep the fire small enough or put it out so that the fire department can get to that rural location, make sure everyone is out, and then put the fire out.
Where do those go? Where does those tanks go?
It goes in a basement or a utility area. It's part of the design of the house because we're talking only new construction.
You don't have to change construction to deal with that?
No.
If I can just make a point too about the tanks. I know it was brought up, Ray, about tank and pumps being the issue that maybe was dropped on the subcommittee. In Barrington, Long Grove, and several other communities allow the use of the well in the house to supply the water. They don't need the tank and pump. As long as, like Ms. Paul said, about 2 heads going off, you can do that. So many communities already do that already. Well pumped, then you won't need the tank and pump. And now, your tank, if your well goes out, you know you're going to fix that thing right away if it goes out. You want your toilet to run, you want to wash your dishes, you want to do everything else. So it supplies that 15 gallons or that 28 gallons a minute that you need without doing the tank and pump. Now, if you want to do a tank and pump, you can do it as a backup. And the NFPA codes allow it.
The city of Crestwood hasn't had a new home since they passed the sprinkler law.
When was
Crest Hill.
that?
One of the aldermen called me and told me that nobody wants to build.
When was Crestwood passed?
No,
Because they-
Crestwood.
Crest Hill.
3 years ago.
Well, I believe they also had no permits, it had nothing to do with it, it was the economy. Right, Mr. Josephs?
No, that's not it.
Well, there's 93 communities in Illinois that have passed it, and none of them have ever complained about not having a building being done because of the sprinkler system. So, what was that comment?
There's 1,800 that have it.
Oh, okay, keep hearing that.
Well, if you're required by law to have them from your fire district, you're gonna have to have them anyway. It's like Obamacare. You gotta get it, period, otherwise you pay a fine. Well, the same deal here, but do the people actually wanna pay that added cost? Do they see a value in it? You know, those are questions that
Well,
have to be
what
answered.
they do get, I just mentioned about, what they do get out of it, first of all, is peace of mind. But they do also, there is not an insurance company in the state of Illinois that does not provide an insurance rate to that person.
Do they cover when the water goes off accidentally?
That's 1 in 16 million at the most, and they make
Well,
40
how many
million.
fires are there in the United States?
I'll let the fire
Don't
people answer that,
That's
but
a-
Illinois is
I know
86 fire deaths right now, up to date.
out of all the people in the United States?
Well, we can't argue that. If you're arguing that, just talk with the fire officials,
You know,
because I think that's not an
If I
argument.
can just change the subject here a little bit. So, if it's not in the county codes, then it would be up to the individual fire protection districts to enforce that part of the code. Right? Right?
So if all the fire districts think it's green, then you'll all have it, right?
And you can enforce it.
We just asked though, if you are gonna keep the sprinklers out of 2012, that you go through every single line of the text and make sure that you reinforce the building code back to where it was, including floor joists, floor covering, wall covering, ceiling string, all
We
this
do
stuff.
that now anyway.
I think you're gonna increase back the price of the house back to where it was, and you're gonna it's gonna be equal.
No, we understand this collateral. We understand this collateral, but one thing that we have done is try to plan for something of that nature. With the direction of the subcommittee, we try to make the other subsequent changes, which I believe are still going to be.
I live in a separate home.
All 38 fire protection districts had it in, then I think that would be different.
Well, I
But
live in a sprinkler.
as long as these all don't have it in, I think it becomes more of a problem. So if you have 38 fire protection districts who adopt it, then I do think, since it's going to be enforced uniformly throughout the county, then I think the county perhaps is in a position to enforce it. But unless you all have it, I think it's very difficult for the county to enforce it. And I think that's on the fire protection districts then, for you to uniformly adopt it.
Just another quick last comment. I live in a sprinkler home also. When I built my home, the sprinklers I thought were going to be expensive also, so I realized how it wasn't. When I got the price tag, my house was a little more because I sprinkled more. It was a single home, it wasn't a group of homes. My cost of my house had been almost $2,000 less with the sprinklers. If I would have had it done in a whole subdivision, it was cheaper. But when I saw that my garage was $10,000, they had a third-car garage, and my sprinklers were only $8,000, and that was including, I had a lot more than was required. It would have been a $5,600 job probably in my house, but I went a little over and above. I did it because the upgrade to carpeting in my house would be $2 a square foot is $1.80 for my sprinklers, and that was because I increased my coverage. It's even less in subdivision. So the price, people get scared when they see the price, but when you compare it, and the sprinkler people can give you a lot better prices nowadays than I can give you off the top of my head. But if it's integrated in your home and the technology has changed so much with the piping, and my house is still done in partial steel, the codes have changed so much on the plastic and a different type of flexible tubing, it's so much different now. It's more cost effective. People get scared, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. Sometimes it's technology they don't understand. Just like people don't like cell phones and computers and iPads. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. We had a dryer fire the other day, it was a dryer fire. The gentleman just got his family out of the house. He went around the back of the house. Immediately after he got his people out of the house, he went to the meeting place, pulled his garden hose and tried to put out the fire himself, couldn't get back into his house. So that was probably another minute maybe. He got around the side of the house, 2 minutes tops. That's all he had extra. He would have got out. So, I mean, sometimes when these fires go, you don't have time, and say smoke tech, yeah, they do a great job. But sometimes if fire gets big enough, you don't have time to do anything else. And if your family's not together and all upstairs in the bedroom, you can't get them out, it could be that risk. And I know people say it's not going to happen to me. Just like tornadoes aren't going to hit Coal City, it doesn't happen to me, but it did. Building department, you guys have those little tiny brackets you put on the rafters now for the wind lift on the roofs. Makes a huge difference. Whoever thought that stupid little piece of metal would make a huge difference? And little things like that, you don't realize. Sprinkler systems are small compared to your house, and it makes a big difference.
That's what I still don't understand what Jim said and what I said. If you guys are so in favor of it, then, I mean, why is it our job to create a code? We're enforcing your codes now. And if you all think it's great, and all 38 of you agree, then you just...
Well, a lot of us know that 2012 is coming, and the code, it's in the model code. So we're expecting that to roll in just like it would. It's code change time. A lot of us are in 2006. And what Ray said, usually you go on a 3 or 6 or like that, and we're figured, a lot of people skip the 3 and go to the 6. This would be the natural, normal time to implement the next modern thing, and that's what we were expecting.
But I don't think we need to be ahead of the fire protection districts. You need to adopt it, all the districts, so that we can uniformly apply it throughout the county. Does that not make sense to you?
I guess I would have to then ask them, why wouldn't the county just adopt the 2012 code as it is and not amend out?
It's your fire protection
And
code.
not amend out the fire.
Why wouldn't the 38...
Then we're in unison, everybody. The fire districts all have to act independently. Can't the county set the example here? You've already got it. This is the trend. You're hearing this.
Well, maybe you guys could take our trend and not make your
Well,
ordinance include them.
I want to hear from all 38 fire protection districts. Let's see what they're going to do. I mean, is that unreasonable? I don't need, you want me to dictate to the protection districts with the code? Or do you want their codes to come to us?
Well, county chiefs have a meeting Monday, this will be brought up. And so we can probably have an answer for you Monday at 11 o'clock.
You know, Larry, I'm looking just for uniformity here. I don't want something apply to one part of the county and not the other. I want to make sure the fire protection district draws.
Which is the way it exists now.
But you're gonna adopt the 2012, but take the sprinklers out, but you want us to...
Do we not adopt anything? I don't know. I mean, you're making the assumption we're gonna adopt the 2012 codes.
Well, that's what...
I'm not so sure
What's behind you.
that's the case. I mean, we're talking about adopting.
But that's the part I don't understand as a resident. Then why would Will County adopt a code and take something out of that code? That's what I'm not following.
Do they not? Do they stay at the 2006 code?
Why is it even something you're talking about taking out?
because the home builders and the construction people say it's too expensive for people to build houses.
It's funny, California is starting their 4th year with a statewide requirement of residential sprinklers for 1 and 2 family homes. The home builders report a 155% increase this year in home building. That's California. But the fact is, if you check with the home builders, their home price, it has not in any way hampered new construction in communities that require residential sprinklers.
Well,
We have home builders over there, anybody got it?
I got one question. Do you have sprinklers in your house? Do you have sprinklers in your house?
None of my house.
Are any of you guys on a well? What's the difference in cost? And this is from the NFPA, and it says $1 or something a square foot, $1.35 a square foot.
It's closer to
Is that
$2. Closer to $2 here.
Oh, okay, but is that cost comparable whether you have a well or you have city water? Is it apples and apples, or those apples and oranges, those numbers? Because everything I read, even that you guys put out, that the sprinkler fitter sent me, was about residences that are in incorporated areas where they have city-supplied water supply. I'm not saying one way or the other, whether it's good or bad. I'd just like to know, is it apples and apples, or is all the stuff that is getting put before us for residences in an incorporated area?
I do work with fire departments and communities across the country. And as you mentioned, California and Maryland are the 2 states that require sprinkler systems in all new construction at the state level. New home built in California or Maryland has to be sprinklered in new construction. And no, it's not apples to apples. If you are on a water supply, a town municipal water supply, that is the most cost effective. But the price of having to go with a tank and a pump could add $1,500, $2,000. We're talking, like I mentioned earlier. I just want to point out that I had the opportunity to sit on a committee. It's the Fire Protection Research Foundation. They've done 2 studies now, one in '08, and we just released one in September 11th. And this was a cost assessment. The first time we looked at 10 communities, and a couple were communities here in Illinois, but they were across the country. And the study we just released was a study of 20 communities, and some of those communities were located in Lake County, Illinois. And we were just looking at where sprinklers were required and what the total cost would be to the builder, and that included permit fees, anything related to the installation of sprinklers. And originally in '08, it came out to $1.61, and now this is a national average per sprinkler square foot. It actually came down a little bit when we looked at 20 because of more sprinkler codes throughout the country. Now, as Tom mentioned, here in Illinois, because of union labor costs, it is a little more expensive. It's closer to about $2 a square foot. So there are different reasons for it. So I just wanted to point out, when I heard 10,000 per system, that's just not the case. And I want to point out who else was on this committee. It was, like I said, the Fire Protection Research Foundation. We had someone from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We have a builder on the committee. We had MRAC from the National Association of Home Builders on that committee. We had Jeff Hyde from State Farm. We had a sprinkler contractor on the committee, Dennis Gensel from the U.S. Fire Administration, Tommy Hoover, the State Fire Marshal from California, Bruce Johnson from the ICC, Gary Keefe from Global, and also a water municipality person from California who was part of California passing the code at that level. So there are a lot of different people who were stakeholders in different parts of that code who were on this study. And it is available. You can go to NFPA's website and download it if you want to take a look at it. But it's good information about the cost of systems when people are claiming it's $10,000 or more.
I was gonna ask Tom, maybe, what's the average cost per square foot of a new construction home in Will County? $102, $105, what is it?
I yield to Bill on that.
It all depends on what community that's in, but I'd say it could be anywhere from $100 to $120. But I would, as president of the Illinois Home Builders Association, I completely disagree with her study that she went back out forward. Those prices were absolutely skewed, and the cost is substantially higher. You're way above the 250 to 350. Just in the southern suburbs, we had over 8 contractors turn in different pricing. And the least expensive pricing on one of the homes that were mentioned was $9,800. And then with the mandatory options of electrical insulation that has to be installed to make sure that those lines, don't freeze, and then the additional carpentry works that's necessary to box those in, it's not as easy as everyone is discussing. Homes have never been built safer than they have today. Fires are dropping at not a slight rate, they are dropping at an absolute clip. And that is also because of these people here. With their teaching, with their teaching to the communities, setting up programs in the communities, fire deaths are absolutely plummeting. I think the last record that I actually seen is that in all housing, fatalities are less than 0.35% of all existing homes. Of that 0.35%, 0.83% are fatalities. Most of the fatalities occur in one room or two rooms because you can't protect people against themselves. It's because of smoking. It's also because of cooking utensils that will always be there. But in the last 20 years, they haven't been just slowly going down. They have been plummeting down because of the industry, the home builders, and because of the fire protection districts and their hard work in educating everybody that's involved.
And we keep it down to better codes.
Right, and going back to the codes, when they say minimum are phenomenal codes. This isn't like we're trying to buy a minimum pair of shoes. When they say you got to use 2x10s to span a 12-foot span, okay, that's the minimum. But you can do a dance on a live floor load that's above it. So when people use minimum, I think they use it for their own benefit in the discussion. But I think the main point that we all should be talking about is technology. Okay, deaths are going down because of smoke detectors, and they're going down because of carbon monoxide detectors, and they're going down because people are allowed to put them in their home and they're wired direct. People get calls on their phones today. If their alarms go off, if their heat sensors go below 65 degrees, their carbon monoxide detector, of which went off in my own house, and the fire department was over at my house in about 8 minutes from after I got the call. It was a defective unit. Okay, but the unit was also 18 years old. I was very happy that they notified me of it and do it because those are the deaths that can occur. Fire sprinklers aren't the only reason or the only way to do the protection.
Right, because how many other homes in unincorporated Manhattan do not have sprinkler systems? How many homes are there in the township? 500? They don't have sprinklers.
Here's the question that I would like to really put forward, is that really of all the fires that occur, and I have two close relatives that are Chicago firemen, and so I hear the grisly stories and everything that occur, but predominantly fires are occurring in older homes, homes that are 60 years or more old, homes that the piping was really gas piping because that's how you used to light the house, and then they ran cloth wires in it and the substandard electrical systems that are put into that. Now we're talking about sprinklers for new homes of which have very little problems whatsoever in nationally. Why are we talking about the homes that people are living in all of our inner cities? over here in Joliet that are over 50 years of age. No one's talking about putting more smoke detectors in those homes, carbon monoxide detectors in those homes, or how about putting sprinkling detectors in those homes, and multifamily homes that are over 50 years of age? Why aren't anyone discussing those where all our deaths and our tragedies are happening?
Actually, we do a lot of retro in the older homes and older buildings. We try doing that in a lot of cities. We get a lot of resistance from that. And we get a lot of resistance from that because of the cost. People don't want, we had to hire sprinklers.
Isn't that why we just had this debate when the state fired the marshal?
Yes. Right, but when you're talking about doing the old stuff, we tried sprinkling stuff in the city of Chicago. We tried sprinkling stuff, we get turned down all the time because of money. Okay, so it's not like we're not trying. Also, too, when you're talking about the houses that are 50 years old, those homes are built to the code of the time. Just like now, we're building the homes to the code of the time. And then 50 years from now, people are going to say, holy cow, look what they did back then. So those houses, the Chicago bungalows, are built to the code of the time.
I look back as that, and I've been in this business my whole life, and my adult life of 38 years. And I remember in the late 70s, they came out with the smoke detectors. And my father and several other guys put them in because they thought they were a great idea. And at that time, they were only battery operated, you know. And then I'd say about, it had to be 5 or 6 years, a lot of the municipalities said, here, let's put these detectors next to the furnaces, hot water tanks. And again, at that time, those were Class B fuse or even less. I mean, some of them, they were going into clay, you know, chimney fuse that were going in there. And that made a tremendous difference. And then after that, they said, let's make that to be wired. Now you look back at those same homes where, say, fires and stuff are occurring, is because we can't get the maintenance on those small little fire detectors, smoke detectors, that were in homes 35, 38 years ago. And we haven't been able to come up with a process to make sure that these older homes, these homes that are 40, 50, 60 years, why can't they not have smoke detectors? Why can't they not have detectors which are simple units that are standard operating procedure in a single-family home? But why, that should be the predominant discussion of how should we be able to do that, and how, as a society, we should be able to fund that. Not on a brand new single-family home. Now with the energy code, we got 90% efficient furnaces that we're taking almost the heat and a lot of the destruction that's in the homes out of them. Why don't we have a discussion that we have to have a certain type of rug? Why don't we have a discussion that we have a certain type of paint or a tile floor? But no, we have a discussion on putting a sprinkling head, which is 120-year-old technology, instead of like ADT, Infinity, and all these other companies are putting these wire systems in that if your light is on too long, it comes up on your phone, which is new modern technology.
Are you changing yours Monday?
No.
How are you going to change ours Monday?
We're not going to change ours to you do. We'll wait for you, Larry.
Okay.
I think the only other thing is...
Honestly, you guys are the experts.
We'll wait to get it.
Well, that's what I'm asking, if you guys have questions, I think the underlying theme that I'm seeing here is that there's a question as to whether or not legally fire districts have any say-so in doing this. And I think, you know, Tom, I'm not a lawyer,
No,
but I
I agree with what you said.
in a recent decision with Lake County versus what kind of fire district, the state of Illinois, the state Supreme Court said that the fire districts do have the authority to enforce their code in the unincorporated areas of the county. So I think that answers the question.
We don't really need to be here.
But
You guys make the
we want to
rules
work with
anyway,
you,
so-
Steve, I think you're missing the point. We want to work with you, but if you guys have questions, give us what the questions are, and we can certainly get back to you guys with, some answers.
Well, I agree, but I didn't realize that you guys are the ultimate authority on it. So, I mean, you guys enforce whatever's in your jurisdictions. So at that point, like Jim said, having one uniform, that's what we want. But whether we want it or not, it doesn't matter, because each one of the districts can do what they want anyway.
Comes out, who's gonna enforce it? I mean, if your code's more restrictive than the county code, then you would have to enforce your part of the code that's not ours.
That's what we have, right, we have the attorneys and then we
So-
have the
so-
authority then to take.
So if we talk about fire suppression, sprinkler systems, if it's not in our code and it's in your code, then it'll be up to you to enforce it. But if it was uniform, then it's easier for us to enforce it as a county. I'm really just looking at the county to have it something that we apply uniformly throughout the county.
That would be a great approach, that would be an intergovernmental agreement between the fire districts and the county and all of that.
I think we already have one.
We already have it, that's what we're doing now, basically, even if it hasn't been officially done.
Include that, and everybody's on the same
That's in
page.
practice, that's what we've been doing.
Well, I don't even see us having a choice. I mean, if we say we don't want sprinklers and you guys say you want them, we gotta live with it, according to what I'm being told. So, I mean, it's like a waste of time to even discuss it here. It's up to you
I
guys.
think we'd rather have it come from you than us going to you. We'd rather have you bring it to us.
I think as far as going to your meetings, maybe Ray, if you could send somebody, you know what our feelings are, and you're more technically involved than what we are, so.
Be happy to carry all of your questions. And if I could be invited to that meeting, I would sit and listen and try to express the concerns as best I could.
Just want to comment, it just bothers to me to hear some of the comments made. I spent 38 years in the fire service, just recently retired. I have to tell you, fire does not discriminate. Old home, new home, anywhere. And the fact is fire sprinklers are designed for life safety first. Secondary, there's some property conservation to it. But when the fire department's here to do a side-by-side or a demonstration, I think it's very convincing when you see the difference. As far as water leaks, things like that, usually they were installed wrong. And contractors are getting better at it now, as far as installing proper insulation. We have differences here up in our area with the climate. It's a little bit different in Phoenix. But the fact is when we talk about smoke detectors in the 80s, there was pushback to put them in. Carbon monoxide detectors, there was pushback to put them in. Do you think when we look at our automobiles, they require airbags? Why do we do that? It's a passive life safety device we have to put in there. We're protecting the general public. This is why the model codes are turning that way too. We have to do ground fault interrupters. We have to do this. Now we got to do energy. These things are imposed to protect the general public because they don't always do it themselves. This is how the code process is about. This is how technology is about. So the fact is to build it right into the new construction is just part of the new code. You have to look at it in advance.
That's correct. We do have the current municipalities that are participating.
I don't know, and they need to come along. I mean, the fire districts need to help bring them along. Not just the unincorporated talk. It makes no sense for us to do it in the unincorporated areas and the municipal entities not do it. I just want to throw that out.
I thought that the municipals would be responsible to do whatever the fire district says anyway. Isn't that what?
Well, I think everybody tries to work,
Say that?
well, here's what it is I think most people are still in 2006 code. Ray, am I correct?
Most have actually come now, I would say the greater part of them are on either 9 or 12.
They're looking at it, it says we are.
But most are on 9 or going to
They're 9.
12. So,
I did see, most of them, I looked at some of the sheet, a lot of them were on 6.
there's a lot still on 6, yeah.
A couple were on 9.
A lot of them are in flux, just as we are, because of the 6-year cyclical update.
Here again, I think it makes things more applicable when everyone moves together. And I do think the districts can help with that, by the way. I just want to throw that out.
So you said if all the districts adopted the code that way, you guys would have, but now you're saying you probably wouldn't unless we got all the municipalities off.
Well, no, I'm just saying that it's easy, I didn't say that.
Oh,
I
yeah,
said-
you're looking for that perfect world.
I said it's easier if everybody's moving in the same direction at the same time. Uniformity throughout the county is important. But if you technically, every district adopted fire suppression, then technically everybody would have to do it. It just comes to a matter who's going to enforce it. Is it going to be the zoning authority, or is it going to be the districts that enforce it? Fire protection district.
I think the
If you have the
district,
ability, if it's your ordinance, you have the ability to enforce it. It's just a matter of who's going to enforce it.
I think the fire district should enforce their own codes and let the residents and the builders and everybody go after you guys instead of us. Because we don't deserve, I don't believe in what these codes are. Everybody gets that, I don't like it. But if I can't do anything to change it, I have to sit back and go, okay, well, you guys are the authority. But don't come at me and say, well, what are you gonna do about it? You're the one making the rules, so you guys should enforce it.
I'll give you another out. You don't want
I'm not looking for an out, I don't even like any of this.
Well, they shouldn't even
The
come.
conversation isn't going the way I would like it to go.
You could reference the code-making process. They're the ones who make it up. And then you've got experts from all facets that make up that code. Not just fire, not just architects. It's a whole committee. And I'll turn it to Bob Neal. He'll tell you the input comes from all around. So that's what we got to default to.
If you live
We're
in
not the potential enforcement. If we adopt the code, but they don't enforce the code, this comes down to a matter of enforcement. Who's going to enforce it?
After adoption.
After adoption. Right.
And if it's your rules, you enforce it. You guys make the law, you live by the law.
I don't mind enforcing it.
We still have,
We have to work
just
together.
make a comment, we do that now, but we still have to work with the building department, because they need to know our codes, we need to know their codes. So we still have to work together.
I'm not saying you shouldn't work together at all, I'm just a little frustrated in the codes.
You just don't like authority.
I don't want the government telling me what to do every time I turn around. I think that's wrong.
It should be our job to force the 38 districts to do what's right if they know it's right.
You're not forcing us to do it.
That was never happening, to my knowledge.
But you want us to put it in our code. Tell us that the 38 districts are all going to put it in theirs. Then come back to us. Or are you saying you can't get agreement with the 38 districts? If they're not all in agreement with it.
Probably look at Facebook like this because they're confused, you know? You've got it.
Right now, every district has.
Have you adopted the fire code in 2006 International Fire Code?
So every one of your districts has a different code.
But, no, they're all the same codes, but they probably have some exceptions, and you set different limits. But I bet you if you look at them, they're probably all the same, pretty much the same code, 2006 or 9.
We're 2006, correct?
Right.
So that's what we currently.
The code in Manhattan is the same one as in Frankfurt, only he stops at 3,000 square feet.
Correct.
And I go to 0. That's the difference.
Same code.
Elwood's the same way, Culver's the same way.
Mokina's the
That's
same
the only,
way.
Mokina's the same way. New Exeter.
Any square foot commercial and
You need to explain what, I don't know if you know what the threshold means.
Let me ask you, like Mokina, I understand because Mokina codes, the village's codes are over 6,000 square feet, 7,500.
The sprinkler ordinance is 7,500 square, or it's more restrictive in the building code.
Okay, so is your code more restrictive than that?
Well, if it was straight out of the code, there are certain situations where you can, get away with not sprinkling a building up to 52,000 square feet.
I'm just asking, what do you enforce currently? I'm just wondering, they're enforcing up to 7,500 square feet. Currently, you don't have residential, one or two family.
Single family?
Right.
No, sir.
Okay.
Foresight, I think it is. Is the city of Manhattan also required to put sprinklers in for their new building?
They opted out, right? Pardon me?
Guys, they opted out, right? The city opted out, so they don't have to, but I have a lot in Manhattan Township I was gonna build, I spent $5,500 on a plan, and I find this out.
Yeah, I wish somebody would have let us know
Yeah,
before
I
we
spent this
spent money
money.
on a plan.
Because now I wouldn't have built there. I've been living in Manhattan Township for 14 years, paying $11,000 taxes, and I got well and septic, last one plowed, and I love it there, all right? But now I gotta pay probably $15,000. What's the requirements for a house, a 3,000 square foot ranch in the Manhattan Township for sprinklers? Can you tell me?
10 grand.
How much it's gonna cost?
No, what's the requirements? What do I need, a 1,000-gallon holding tank? I need a backup generator? Okay, so what's the requirements, and what all do I need in Manhattan Township to put a sprinkler system in?
NFPA 13D, and
What size holding tank do I need then?
300 gallon?
Okay, and I don't need a backup generator.
Nope.
And then, who's gonna pay for this? I am?
Yeah.
Well, how come you guys won't pay for it?
Because our
Where do my tax dollars go?
Yeah, where do our tax dollars go? What do we get?
I'm paying $11,000 out there, and what do I have? I gotta go to New Lenox to do grocery shopping, basically, or any shopping. There's Burcott's. I mean, you know, I'm just saying. It's easy for you guys to make 150 grand a year, probably, right? Or whatever you guys make. You know?
You know what, you're speaking with emotion, you're not speaking with facts, so let's talk fact and not speak emotion.
The gentleman's,
That's insulting.
it's gonna be about $10,000 or $12,000.
9 years, and I held on to it. I was gonna build in '06, which then there wasn't sprinklers, okay? But then the economy took a turn for the worse, and we waited. I've been paying $3 grand a year of taxes on an empty lot, waiting to build again, and I finally got up to the point where I could, and then I find this out.
After we spent $5,500 on a plan.
I would have sold it years ago and moved out of
Does
there.
anybody want to buy a lot?
Yeah.
Manhattan Township.
I know Mr. O'Donnell has some lots close to mine too, and I'm sure he's not happy about it either. He was gonna put up a spec, I heard, and now he's not.
Okay, now, we've heard a lot of, you know...
Does get emotional.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
it's...
this was our dream home, and now, like, our dreams have just been crushed.
We understand how the impact does work in various areas, certainly. And we understand where there's sort of an anomaly when a district can put something into effect and it's in a township, but not within an incorporated limits, but that is the legalities of it. That is something that occurs, and I can't say that it's fair or unfair.
Right, I understand. I'm sorry too.
But that's understood. The last thing I want to do, though, is, you know, gather just some final comments so that we can close this. You've all been gracious. You've all spent a long time with us this evening, giving us a lot of good information. And I would certainly like to leave with knowing exactly how some of the impacts are, emotional or not, knowing what some of the pluses are and where the trade-offs might be, so that I can better carry the questions my ordinance review committee is going to give me to you and present the answers to them again. So, thank you. We have some final comments?
Yeah, let's try to wrap it up. Please.
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, thank you once again for this evening. I thank the others that are here as well. I think clearly the comments addressed by the individuals over here to my immediate left demonstrate the fact why it's important that there be an option provision in this process, you know, for single, 2 units, multi-units. But I also think it's important that